Glory to God.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Bless the name of the Lord. Hallelujah. Lift your hands to the Lord right now. Just give him a hand praise this morning. Hallelujah. We love you, Lord. We bless your name. You are good and you are God, and above you there is no other. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yes. Let all the other names fade away. Let all the other names fade away. Till there's only you. Let all the other names fade away. Jesus, take your place. Jesus, take your place. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm going to ask you to stand to your feet as we get ready to receive the word of God this morning from our very own Pastor Dennis Harris. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Praise to you. You may be seated. We're going to get ready. We're going to point our hands toward him and we're going to pray. Hallelujah. Get ready for the word of God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let's point our hands that way and ask the Lord to bless him from on high this morning. Hallelujah.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Father, in the mighty and matchless name of Jesus, we just ask you to bless our dear pastor with a ready word from you this morning. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Bless him in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
And I receive it. Amen. Good morning, Ebenezer Christian Worship Center on this special day.
Good morning.
I just want to say this in the beginning, that yes, this is a message of our Father's Day. But as you know, in our society, Father's Day means a lot of things. It's a lot different than it was. Being a father means a lot different now than it did before. But the Word of God gives us clear and distinct instructions on how to be a father and a godly father. So I say this message, and I want you, the mothers out there who are standing in place, I want you to take this message because it applies to you as well. Not only that, for those who are not fathers, but you are fathers to those who are the fatherless. And for those who are even in their younger age, take this message because it is also for you. There's 4 stages of fatherhood. I'm going to go over those 4 stages with you. And each one of those stages has a time period in our lives as fathers. And each stage has an importance in the development of those around us, to our vulnerable gifts of God. I want to read from 1 Timothy 1, verse 18 and 19, if you may stand for the word of God. That's 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 18 and 19. This is in the NIV translation. This is a letter, Timothy, from Paul. Timothy, my son, I am giving you this command in keeping with the prophecies once made about you, so that by recalling them, you may fight the battle well, holding on to faith and good conscience, which some have rejected and so have suffered the wrath by regards to the faith. Amen. May God give a blessing to the reading of his word. You may be seated. Amen. Like I said, this is a letter that Apostle Paul sent to Timothy. This is both the letters, 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy. They're not very long, but very few people actually get into Timothy. But I find it to be, as a Christian leader, as one of the most important parts of our Christian lives, especially as all of us are striving to be that Christian leader. Now, when we first come into Christianity, we're here in the beginning, and we're learning. And then we move into into a place of position where we not only are learning, but we are starting to expand upon what we learn and apply it to our lives. And then we go into an area where we become leaders. And we get into small groups. And we start sharing what God has shared with us as we grow in His Word and grow in His Spirit. And then we come to the center. And that's where Timothy is right now. That's where we're talking about. Timothy is right in the center, where not only is he a leader, but he's taking over an area where God has led him. So Timothy was a young pastor set over the church of Ephesus. The church of Ephesus was a large assembly of believers with many issues. Issues that probably would have challenged someone who was more seasoned and more experienced than himself. At this time, there was a lot of falsehoods going on, and the church of Ephesus was trying to get into some ceremonial rituals. And they were starting to develop this thing about their church and worshiping parts of their ceremony and not worshiping God. And this is the area that Timothy was coming into. This is an area where Timothy, as a young man, had to rely on what he was taught by his mentors and what he has seen as he was growing into his ministry. So Paul stated to Timothy that the goal of his command in these letters was love. Love that comes from a pure heart, a good conscience, and sincere faith. Those were the things that he was putting together, that he was telling Timothy to come with and to rely on. See, Paul, like any good father, wanted to give instructions to his spiritual son that would, number one, unveil blind spots. Yeah. There would be times in his ministry where he would be going into a dark area and he wouldn't know how to handle these situations. But he was giving him the knowledge and the spirit and the God word that he could get through those moments. Yes. And the strength. How often have we gone through our lives and we come to a spot in our lives where we're totally confused on which way to go, what to do, what to look for. Yes. But if we come to God at that point and we say, Lord, help me. Jesus, by the blood of Jesus, He shines a light in our path and shows us the way. This is what he was trying to give to him. He gave his son confidence and a sound strategy. Yes. He gave him confidence in what he believed and what God has given him. That he could go out with a strategy and a calmness about himself. Even talking to people who were older than himself. Yeah. He gave him a confidence that he knows God's word. He knows the Spirit of God and how it would relate to him. He reminded him of the words of God spoken over his life. See, he knows what Jesus said as he ascended. And he said, multiply. Go out and multiply. Go out and spread the word, the gospel to the world. Yeah. So he had a mission. God gave him a purpose. And so Paul is reminding him now that the words of God were spoken over him. Yeah. So fear not. Don't be afraid to share what you know and what God has given you. To correct any bad behavior that would lead him astray. How often, as Christians, that we don't rely on what God tells us. And we don't correct our bad behaviors. And we have some, all of us. I got to admit, I have them. To this day, I have bad habits that I got to think to myself and say, Lord, now you know, I apologize and forgive me. and we move on from there. So we don't go astray. He gave to him every tool he needed to successfully complete his work. Paul gave him every word and everything he needed to complete his work.
Yes.
Everything. Not only did Paul instruct Timothy with his word, he also mentored him as a co-laborer. He worked beside him. He showed him what he was doing in his ministry so that he could emulate what Paul was doing in his ministry when he would be standing in his place, speaking to the people and his church. In other words, he let Timothy assist him until he was ready to work on his own. And he was ready for the separation between him and his mentor. Incidentally, Timothy's name means precious to God. Every son and every daughter should be thought of by their father as precious to God. Every son and every daughter. It is a privilege to be a father. It is a privilege to share what you have gone through. I myself, I know what I've gone through as a child and the wisdom that God had given me. I've been blessed by that wisdom. And I'm willing. The key point is being willing to share that wisdom that God has given me through the life. And I'll be 69 years of age. You're young. Okay, I saw the smiles. But I feel that God has given me a fresh awakening of what is around me and what I am to do and who I am to be. And he changes that monthly. I can't tell you what us being separated from you has done to our relationship.
Yes.
It has bound us together, that our ministry is solid.
Yes.
It was good before, but it is solid now. That we share our feelings and our words that God gives us, and we come out, and you may see us, we'll be traveling down, and we're smiling, and people are probably looking at us like, what's with those two? But we know that God is working with us and providing with us. You know, as we went through the Facebook Live, and as we were here by ourselves, and we would sing praises, and you know, it was a rejoicing time for us because we bonded as even singers. So it was commented to us that you should see the joy that you could see while we were singing. But that was because God has built us together so that we could bond together, even when we were afraid that, okay, we can't mess this up. You know, we're afraid to sing this, but we're going to go on because normally we have a praise team up here, but it's just the two of us. And this is on live, so we can't, you know, just kind of skip over something. But it bonded us together in his praise. And we know that God's feeling and his presence was with us because we could feel the joy in our spirit. And we know that God was pleased in our coming. God gave instructions on being a man. And I know you guys heard me talk about my mother. And very little about my father. But my father was a man who was very quiet. He was very set back. He worked 2 jobs most of my life. He would work early in the morning and then come home or go straight to work to a second job. Now, because of that, sometimes you felt like, okay, where is my dad? But you know, my mother made up for that. And she would tell us often, there was three boys. I was the youngest of 3 sons. And she would tell us, you know, your dad's out there working hard to provide you with those clothes. Why are you running around in the mud? Why are you slipping around in the dirt? And you would know that he was present because she would mention him in everything we do. You know, your dad would be proud of you when you made that home run. Your dad is proud of you. Because he knows that he gave you, through your inheritance, he gave you the ability to make that coordination and do that. She would mention everything that you would do. She would say, you know, your dad and I are proud of you. And you knew his presence was there through her. Now, she was the one that taught us. I mean, number one, I know all of y'all have experienced me opening and closing the doors for you. And she used to tell us, okay, that is something you do as a man. Your dad did it with me, and I expect you to do it when you are out too. Not only as a grown-up, but then. If I was 4 or 5 years old, and a woman was coming up behind me, she expected you to open that door. I'll open that door for that woman. Oh, no, you don't have to. Yes, he does, because I told him. And I opened the door. Thank you. You're so cute. And walk on. Say thank you. Thank you. But that's what my mother did. Say thank you. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Those things, those values that she taught early on in our lives carry through. How to eat. What tools to use while you're eating. How to sit up straight. Walk in proud. Okay? I have a couple of rules that I want to share with you. Pastor Marshall laughing already. One, and I know it doesn't make sense to you, but think about it. When you go into a swimming pool, don't use the steps. Okay, I see what you're talking about. Jump in, make a splash. Make a splash in your life. Don't just be normal. Go in that thing. And everybody gonna look at you and say, wow, did you see that? When you come into a room, hold your head up high. Arch your back. Put your shoulders back. And come in. I am somebody. I am a child of God. Wonderfully made. I'm here. Now, don't let pride get in your way. You know about pride. But it's not about that. It's about holding an esteem in your life that you have. And be proud of who you are. No matter what you look like or what you have. And we must instill this in our kids today. Of all times, it is necessary. If somebody hands you a breath mint, take it. There's a reason. Take it. If somebody gives you some advice, take it. There's a reason. If someone wants to show, hey, let me show you this. Even if you're not interested, take it. There's a reason. God will put things in front of you and say, learn this. Because there might be something down the road that Jesus has for you. Those are the things that my mother instilled upon us that were valuable as we went down the road. When you do something, do it to your best. And don't rely on somebody else's principles. Do it to your best. Not to someone else's standard, but to your standards. And we as adults and as fathers must uphold those standards that God has given us. Today I want to bless you with 4 stages of fatherhood. Now again, I say fatherhood, but this applies to all of us. All of us in this room. The first one is covering. The second one is instructing. The third one is modeling. And the fourth one is releasing. Each of these stages has a time period. Has a time in our lives that we have to explore this stage in our lives. And those stages sometimes overlap. And extend. But they're there. And I'm not just talking for my time period, but I'm talking about for all time. Even in the lives of our animals, in our animal kingdom right now, there are stages that they go through in development. And each parent in the animal kingdom knows when those periods are, when they have to grow and go. Let's start with covering. Covering starts from the first day and continues on most of the time until adulthood. Hopefully not much longer. Providing everything necessary for the sustaining and stability of growth in our vulnerable offsprings. And I say that, vulnerable, because there's a lot of things in the world today that that wants to influence and take over where your job is in covering for our offspring. In Timothy 5 and 8, Paul tells his spiritual son, Timothy, but if any provision not for his own, and especially for those of his own family, he hath denied the faith. So if you do not provide for those around you in your home and deny the faith, it is worse than an infidel. Now, an infidel is a person who does not believe in God and definitely does not believe in the ways of God. So when you have a person who does not believe in the ways of God, you can see that you can't, and you deny your family this coverage that we're talking about. It is you denying God's work in your life. Provision, a covering. A covering is to provide safe shelter. A place for them to lay their head and feel comfortable and safe. When a child is born, the mother covers that child and holds them safe in her arms. And as that child feels comfortable, there's a bond that is there. Fathers, I say, share that. I remember even when Eva was born, I used to just hold her. And I used to sing to her. And I used to go ABC. And I would sing just all the songs because I knew that if I bonded with her now at a young age, that bond would carry on even to this day. Because that's important. Even as they grow, as our kids grow, the safety of a shelter around them is important for their development because they feel confident that you are there with them. I'm not talking about just a roof over their heads. I'm talking about a shield and a covering for them, even as they go out into the world. You have to watch what your kids are watching today. That's the shelter that I'm talking about. You have to monitor that because there's so much that wants to influence our kids away from God and God's purpose in their lives. You have to cover and provide food, clothing, education, and provision. That's going to carry on for a long time. And that's not just for your offspring, but that's for everyone around you. You are commissioned to feed the fatherless, to provide clothing when possible to those who are in need. Make sure that our educational system covers everyone. And not exclusive to just the privilege, but everyone. Everyone around you. And that education education doesn't mean the ABCs and the alphabet. That includes knowing the Word of God, knowing what life is about, and the privileges of life, and what it means, and what it can do for you. Those are all the educations that we need. Provisions. Those things that they need, not only the physical things, but they need to move on with their lives. The tools. We said it earlier, where Paul had given Timothy all that he needed to succeed in his ministry.
Yes.
He provided him with the provisions and the knowledge and the wisdom and a desire to be successful in life. Let's move on to instructions. Instructing sort of starts at the age 5, earlier, maybe 3, 4 for some kids. But at age 5, kicks in that curiosity stage, where they start asking you questions. And some of those ones that you don't want to answer right now, but they know they want to know about that. And you say, well, you got to feel it out. Tell them the truth. Don't deny that. And it goes up into the teens, sometimes even further. Most of the times even further. To give clear step-by-step plans on how to do things correctly. Step by step. Not, well, we do it this way, read the book. Read the meaning. But give them step by step. This is how you start, this is how you end. This is what happens in between. If you do this, this is what happens. If you don't do this, this is what happens. Those are the instructions step by step of what happens. I know that Marvin had told you about me teaching him how to do brakes. And we would sit there and I would tell him, okay, I'm not going to do this for you, but I'm going to show you. And I'll show you how to use the tools, okay, and how to put it together, and how to do this, and how to adjust it, how to look, what to look for this. This is what you do, and sometimes you might come to a little problem, and I'll go in and I'll try to, but he sees what I'm doing, step by step. And as we're going through the process, it was amazing to see him get excited about doing it and changing it. Not only for himself, but others around him. So I'm sitting back here smiling because I see the growth in him. Not only in that, but other things around him. Because he's learned this, he says, I want to do other things as well. And it moves on and on. This is how our kids are when we instruct them on life itself and how to do it and what to do in life itself. I remember with Julie showing her what to do with her finances and how to write a check and how to balance her checkbook. And I remember how enthused she was now to get back to work. She wanted to work so that she could make some money so that she could write a check. You know? And the excitement in her voice and in her face when she started doing this was a blessing upon her. That's why I said it's a blessing. It's a privilege to move on with that. I know just recently, Torah got a bike. And we were at a family gathering, and I told her, yeah, I'm going to buy a bike for Keturah. And one of the statements was that, and I was going to give her some training wheels. No, she doesn't need training wheels. We didn't learn with training wheels. She can go out there and do it herself. And I remember my stepsister Sandy said at that point, but if she falls, she'll never get on that bike again. So there's steps that you do correctly so that they're enthused about being something. So we got her training wheels. And I remember when we first got her training wheels, she wore me out. Because no matter what, she wouldn't rely on the training wheels and pedaling. She wanted me to push her. So I'm pushing, after 1 or 2 times, I was like, okay, I got to rest. And then she's coming back, I'm back, I want to go. Okay, I'm pushing, I'm holding her up, because she's trying to, she'll lean on one side and lean on the other, and then she'll start humming. And I know she wasn't paying attention, she was enjoying the ride. Meanwhile, I'm pushing. I said, okay, we got to fix this. So the next thing that happened was she bent the training wheel. kept leaning on one side and she couldn't training wheels. So I had to buy her heavy-duty training wheels. I'm just talking about some heavy-duty training wheels. And then the first day we took it over to her, Jessica sent us a video of her on the bike, and she's in the driveway of the church up there, and she's on the level, and she goes over this little bump, and she says, and over the hill, and she's just pedaling away, and she hits her brakes, and she knows like she was a pro on those training wheels. But that's the steps that we have to take with our young people and show them the way. Sometimes they may need those training wheels, so they don't fall and get hurt and be discouraged. Not that they're not going to fall, not that they're not going to experience the pain, but you also have to teach them how to get up and move on. Correcting bad habits. We all have bad habits. And we have to watch when we're talking to our kids about their habits. Because they'll ask you, oh, don't do that. You can't do that. Why? And one of the first things I remember hearing, now my mother didn't use it, or my dad would, because I told you to. Oh, well, that added to another question. You know, and most times I got a polite, you better be quiet. Okay. But you heard it. All of us are heard. You do as I say, not as I do. But we all learn from those experiences. Because as adults, we knew how we felt when we heard those words. So when we give instructions on correcting their bad behaviors, I told y'all the story about the toilet seat with Mabel. You know, she was the only woman in the household. Bob put the toilet seat down, and she gathered this all around in the bathroom. Okay. Now they had their own bathroom, but she gathered us all around in the one from the hallway, and she said, "See that right there? That is a commode. That is a toilet. That is not a urinal. So when you go, sit your butt down. If you want a urinal, go get one, put it in." Now that stuck with me, because that sticks with me even to this day. Because it's important in your life. And you'll know. If you have any boys in the house, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you don't have any boys in your household, you're kind of blessed on that too. Because it can get pretty bad. So we know about that. And my mother told us about that. And to this day, I appreciate the honesty that she gave us right then on the instructions on correcting that bad behavior for us. Disciplining when needed. Not out of anger, not out of fear, but to correct behavior. Now I know that this is a touchy situation, especially in our culture today. Kids need strong, sturdy, and firm, and persistent guidance. They need discipline. I hear so often, even on Facebook, how they're complaining about our generation is ones that don't care, have no respect for the law, and no respect for elders, and no respect for anything that goes on, and it's just about them. And I say to you, this is true. But even at the age that they're out there protesting right now, we can instruct them by not sitting back and watch this go on. We've all had a good example of how you can peacefully protest. The destruction is not out of wanting to be seen. I believe it's out of a desire to earn money, where money has pushed them. So I'm going to loot this because not that I need that big screen, but I can sell this. We were watching Black Panther in the movie, and end, there's some kids that are around, and he shows them the spaceship that comes down. And you hear the young, I don't know if anybody heard it, but I caught it several times already. But the young man says, yeah, we can take this and we can take it home and we can sell it. That ain't yours. And I said, what kind of influence is that on a movie like this? But then you hear her say, hey, this isn't yours, but I want to show you about it. So she gave them instructions about that. That's what life is about, giving them proper instructions and discipline. Now, as they grow older, that discipline is going to be more instructional. That's what, and more giving them the reason for it. It's not like you do as I say, not as I do, but you actually show them, hey, this is what it's about. This is why. And there's going to be consequences if you do anything other than this. When they act bad, there are going to be consequences. Show them that there's going to be consequences for the things that they do. And it's not out of anger at that point, but out of instruction and love, because to correct those correcting that behavior. The book of Proverbs is written as a book of instructions from a father to a son. Proverbs 1:8 says, My son, hear the instructions of your father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. That's strong words. I strongly suggest that you read Proverbs, because it has a lot of those lines in it that shows you how to deal with life itself and how to deal with fatherhood and accepting the instruction of your father and mother as well. Let's move on to modeling. Modeling starts at the age probably around 8 or 9. This is the curiosity age, where they're out and they're going, they're kind of pulling away from you at this point. It starts with being an independent person that you got to pull back in a couple times, all the way through teens. But leading by example, you can tell kids nowadays without leading them. You can't just give them an instruction and then let it go at that. Because they'll look at you like you're crazy, number one. And then they want to know why. Why should I do it that way? You don't do it. You keep telling me to brush your teeth. Here's a brush man. But why should I? Go in there and take a bath. Okay. Go and eat all your food. And you eat some of your food and you walk away, leave them to clean it up. They're not going to listen to you if you don't show them the way. Lead by example. Lead them by showing them what it means to be a man. Show them what it means to be a woman. Even at the age of 8, their curiosity in their body is going through some changes, and they want to know what's going on in their lives. So you have to teach them what is going on. What wouldn't you model? If you don't model and you won't model, you have no expectation. You can't expect them to do and see and live in the world if you don't show them what you have no right to expect them to learn. If you don't show them, the world will. Whether it be right or wrong, the world will. So you have to lead them and show them what is going on. If you want to know your habits, watch your kids. Because they emulate what you model. You want to know what your problems are? Watch your kids, because they're looking at you and saying, oh, daddy did it, I can do it too. If you're out there, you're bringing alcohol home into your lives, they're going to say, well, that's okay. Daddy did it. So when they're out there and they get caught for underage drinking, everything else, and driving with her, and you say to yourself, hey, I never taught you that. Yes, you tell them the difference. And then you say to them again, do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't mean the same thing. You got to move on from that. You can't expect them to their behavior to be corrected if they see you doing things. If you're bringing crazy nonsense on the TV into your home, they expect that that's the norm. What you put in place for them is the norm. If you don't bring your children into church and show them the church life that they should be leading, they won't know about it. Then is the time. That is when you should do it. And there should be no excuse for it. Look at our pews. This is what I'm talking about. This should be filled of the young people out here on the streets. They should be hearing this. They should be hearing the Word of God and what praising the Lord is all about. I didn't mean to give you a guilt trip, but I just wanted to put that in there. Paul told Timothy not to be intimidated by those who are older than he. Simply be the example they need to see by being faithful and true in all that you do. I know the other day I was talking to a gentleman out in our yard. He stopped by, and it's been amazing what's going to be going on even during this pandemic with our neighbors out there. But he stopped by, and his son used to walk through our yard all the time and loved our dogs, loved Victoria. And when Elizabeth was born, he laid in our yard and he just hugged her and petted her. I mean, to the point where her dad had to come and find out why he come home from school, that type of thing. Now he's an older gentleman for me, but we just exchanged experiences in our lives, and I sat there with amazement because I think this was the longest, for as long as we've been here, this is the longest that we had a conversation together since we've been here. But he came in and he said to me, he says, you know, I want you to forgive me because I don't even know your name. But he knew our dog's name. How's Victoria? I had thought when Victoria passed away a year ago, Mark. And how is Elizabeth doing? But he had to apologize for not knowing my name. But that's my fault. That's my fault. And then when we went into the conversation, he started explaining to me how he knew about our church. And he knew about our having our church in our house. And he knew about us having a church somewhere in the area and building that church. And that what an influence we were on our community. We didn't know about this. But he's telling me, and I'm feeling, what a time to tell me this when I'm speaking of being instructed and being strong in the faith. And it's Father's Day. But his son was so impressed with the fact that we used to sit and talk, and you know, he wanted to come. Sometimes he would come down and take Victoria for a walk. And he was so impressed with us being with him, and that he said to his dad, he said, I wonder how they're doing down there. I haven't seen them. And a lot of people come by and say, we wanted to stop by, but we haven't seen you in the yard or so. But we're an influence on that community. When we moved in there, one of the things that we said, and Pastor Marshall said it to me, and we reiterated to each other, that we wanted to be a blessing to our neighborhood. And we see now that those things, when we put it into our spirit, we learn. And even though this gentleman would come to me and didn't know my name, I didn't know his name either. I had an idea, but I didn't know his name either. So we introduced ourselves together after years of association. His wife would sit into our yard with his son when Elizabeth was born, and they petted our dogs like they were their own. And they actually bought a dog for their family. So when we share these ideas and we share these developments in our lives with people around us, even at that age, we learn something about ourselves. It is not a mistake. It is not a mistake. Let's move on to releasing. This is from teens to adulthood and beyond, really. Have confidence in the fact that your child has matured enough to perform a particular set of tasks without your presence. Have confidence. If you're not confident that your child can do something, and you got to show them and show them and show them, you're not instructing them. But give them that task and expect them, have an expectation of them finishing it, but being able to do that task without your presence or looking over their shoulder to make sure that they get it done. Because if you have to look over their shoulder to make sure they get it done, then they don't have much respect for your word. And you have to teach them that. And show them, hey, there's a reason for me to ask you to do this. Explain to them the importance of them going on and doing their task. Give help in a as-needed basis. When they get into this age of teenagers, you give them help physically and emotionally and spiritually as needed. Because you should already have placed the basis in their lives. So if they need that to learn the basics, then you go on from there. I'm telling you what to expect. I know. Believe me. There's a lot of time to say, didn't I tell you? No. And then you get angry. No. But you have to sit down and tell them and let them know on a need-to-need basis that I'm not going to help you through this because I already told you and I instructed you on what to do. You got to do it on their own. Allowing them to take mistakes, to make mistakes, and trust God to bring them out victoriously, just like He did you when you made mistakes. If you are a believer in God and the Word of God, they're going to make mistakes. And the one thing that we had talked about, the gentleman and I, just yesterday, and we talked about how his kids started to get into a little bit of trouble, and how he told him right off the bat, if you have problems, you come to me first. You come to me, you call me, or you call your mother first. You're going to make mistakes. But do not be afraid to come and counsel with us on your mistakes. If you leave an open door for them to come and counsel with you during their mistakes, you don't have to worry about the outside influences giving them bad counsel. Because they will come to you first. Instruct them. You make a mistake, come to me. And it's not time at this point in their life to be angry and physical with them. But to be understanding and give them instruction during this time. Give them space to reason and to use every tool that you have placed in their hands. Every tool. You've already have given them all their things during the 8-year-old times up to their teens and from 5-year-old to 8-year-old. You've given them those tools. You've instructed them about what they should do. So now is the time to let them have space and use the tools that you have given them. Let them know you can ask for help if they really need it. You can ask, but I'm going to rely on you, on the tools that I have given you as your father, to move on. I'll help you. I'll stand behind you. I'll watch over you. And I'll do this. But you're going to do it. I'm not going to do it for you. At that point, I'm trying to get through this right now. Good fathers draw a line between needed help and dependency. It comes to the point at this point where they start depending on you to do everything for them, and they rely on you to cut up their meal and stuff. At this age, there's a problem. There's an issue. You need to be telling them, hey, you need to do that yourself. Some struggle is good. It builds a tenacity, a tendency to want to accomplish something. Some hunger is good. It builds an appreciation. I'm not just talking about food, but some hunger. Teach them the hunger of being successful, being on top, a winning drive in their life to want to succeed. I've been often told that I'm the one that wants to accomplish. I do make things work. I want to accomplish this. I want to get to the end. Go through the steps. I learned that the hard way. When you have to go back and take something apart because you didn't read the instructions. But you want to get to that end. And when you see it, one of two things happen. Either you like what you did or you don't like what you did. If you don't like what you did, then you take it to another level. If you like what you did, it should be an encouragement to move on from where you are. Not to stay at that point, but to move on. Paul released Timothy to work in the services of the Lord in a large capacity because he knew his ability through his constant service and what he taught him. In other words, Timothy worked hard alongside of Paul, and Paul had confidence in him that he could do the job on his own. That's what we're talking about in Timothy here. That Paul had mentored him to a point where he could do his ministry without the help of others. Pastor Marcia and I were both mentored to do our ministry. Yes, we made mistakes along the way, but it's a learning curve that we know that as long as we're serving God by His Word, based on the Word that He has given us, and the purpose and our Holy Spirit within us, that He will provide for us as our Father.
Yes.
Who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. One of the greatest tragedies of our time is the fatherlessness in our land. According to the U.S. statistics, 19.7 million children are one in four are living without a father in their home. 19.7 million children. But we are all fathers. We are all fathers to the fatherless. Fatherless can be directly linked to most of the social problems in our lives today. We have to do something about this. One of the greatest promises of God that we can hold on to is He is a father to the fatherless. God will also empower godly men to step in and be fathers where others have failed and fallen. Like Paul, we are called to mentor and be fathers to young men who need covering, instructing, the role models, and being released into God's kingdom. Men of God, we are the solution to the world, and the world is waiting for us. Nobody else is coming in with a big S on their chest. It is us. We mentor all. Look in our streets. These kids are looking for instruction now. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for love. God gave us the example of being motivated by love to raise the next generation to be responsible to God-fearing men. Our prayer should be, Lord, give us sons. If we truly knew the power of a godly man to turn an entire family around, our prayer would be, give us sons. The world is waiting. The world needs us, men. Young and old. There are men out there that need men to sharpen them. To show them the way that God has provided for them. who are searching for someone to show them the way, to show them the light. Let me stand. Heavenly Father, most gracious Lord, we just praise you and thank you for your love. We thank you for your goodness. We thank you for the blessings that you put upon us. We thank you for being a father. We thank you for being a mentor. We thank you for being an instrument to your word and your praise, Father. So, Father, we ask you to strengthen our hearts and our mind, that we know your word, and we be a good influence on those around us. And for the fatherless, let us be the father. For the homeless, let us fill the home. For the hungry, let us feed them. For those who are desiring success, let us be their education. For those who are looking for a way, let us be their provider. We love you, Father.